My name is Rob, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Rob.
I have experience with these steps with the help of God. Big Book Step Study sponsor. I'm a member of the Big Book Step Study, the Path to Recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous that meets at Sunday nights in Marlboro. I'm in the process of making amends, and I try to practice 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis. I want to thank Tina for asking me to come out here and speak. I was talking to Corey before he come up here, and I'm saying I'm a little bit tired of hearing myself speak. I spoke like 3 times this week. I speak in a couple of the state prisons in Massachusetts and in a few other different places, and sometimes I get tired of hearing myself talk, and I hate microphones. So anyways, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in 1986. I was in a state prison at that time, and I didn't get sober until 2005. And in between that, this is a disease of progression. We're talking about step 6s and 7. Even before I picked up alcohol or other substances, I had the isms. I had the behaviors of an alcoholic, and I didn't even know it. My family basically grew up poor, so me, my brother, my sister, we would steal to get money. We would give our mother money, and that was acceptable. Can you hear me?
No. We needed help.
Can you hear me now?
You have to start all over now.
Now I gotta start over? So, like I was saying, before I picked up alcohol and drugs, I had the behaviors of an alcoholic and a drug addict. The lying, the cheating, the stealing. I didn't know it then, I know it today. Like I said, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in 1986 in a state prison, and I didn't get sober until October 2nd of 2005, so I'm coming up on 11 years. At the end of my drinking, I became homeless. I was sleeping on the street. I didn't have one single person in my life that I could call and ask for help. I either pushed every single person out of my life or I stole from them. I was saying this, I spoke in Bolton last week. I had the idea that if I could just get everybody out of my life, I'd be doing okay. And that's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? I got every single person out of my life, and I was left to self. I was left with myself. When it came time for me really to want somebody to help me, I had nobody else to call. I had what you call an emotional bottom. I couldn't drink anymore. Wasn't stopping the pain that I felt inside. I would drink, I would do other substances, and at night I would cry. And I would cry for like hours constantly. And every night I would say, God, please don't let me wake up. Only to wake up the next day to say to myself, why did you wake me up? Resentments against God because I woke up the next day. Because I knew what I was going to have to do in order to get what I needed to get. And, I went into Adcare Hospital one of many times that I've been in that hospital. I've been in that hospital at least 15 times. That's not including all the detoxes in Boston I've been in. Andrew, Somerville, Bridge, Bournemouth Hospital, Arbor HRI. Go into one detox, leave that detox, go out and drink, jumping into another detox. I did that so many times. Never doing what anybody suggested me to do. Why don't you go to meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Why don't you go ask for help? I had this sponsor one time in Salty that every time I got out of jail, I would call him after I drank. It was already too late. And he was the type of sponsor that would just like pull up right in front of the bar and throw me in the car and take me to a meeting. But I wasn't ready to listen. The last time I went into Adcare Hospital, they said there's 2 places we can send you. We can send you to Fitchburg or we can send you to Marlboro. I said, you can't send me to Fitchburg. There's too much drugs in Fitchburg. But you can send me to Marlboro because I don't know anybody in Marlboro. I landed in the Marlboro shelter. I remember going in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was a 6:45 meeting in the morning, and the guy that was chairing that meeting, he looked over at me. He said, do you want to speak? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, pal. I spoke in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time in my life, and I started to go to a lot of meetings. And I was struggling with that obsession to drink for a while, and some guy came up to me and said, why don't you get on your knees and ask God for help? I know today that the only time I was ever willing to turn to a God of my understanding is when I was in trouble. When I was going in front of the judge, can I get a bail? Can I get a break? Can I get out on this one? And it never worked. But I would hear people in the meeting say that if you just get on your knees and ask for the thought, the obsession, desire for a drink or a drug to be lifted from you, and I heard that it works for some people. So I was living in a shelter in a 10-man room. Of course, I got fear of people's opinions. I don't want to see people see me get on my knees. So I would wait for everybody to get out of the room. I'd wait for everybody to go to sleep. And then I'd get on my knees very briefly and say, please remove the thought, the obsession, desire for a drink or a drug. You know, I don't know exactly when it happened. It was probably about 69, 90 days clean and sober, but I remember I woke up one day and I wasn't obsessing about drinking. I'm 48 years old. I've been obsessing about drinking since I was 12 years old. So for the first time in my life, that obsession and compulsion that had ruled my life and made me do things that I thought I'd never do was lifted for me. And what I've come to learn at that point is that I had a spiritual experience at that point. And one form of a spiritual experience or spiritual awakening, it's a personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. And it was a shift. I had this shift early on. And when I look back on that today, it was one of the defining moments in my recovery because it allowed me to become open-minded and take suggestions from other people. You know, it was something that had never been taken away from me, you know, and until this day, almost 11 years later, that obsession has never came back. That's not to say that I haven't thought about a drink. There's a difference between being stuck in obsession mode and thinking about a drink, you know. So I did some different things. Some of the statements that I heard a long time ago that ring through my recovery today, I still apply them every time I speak because it applies to me today. I was in MCI Norfolk, 1986. A guy just like me was standing up here and he said, recovery is what you put into it, is what you get out of it. And almost 30 years later, I remember that statement. I used to remember this guy in Southie, he used to always say it every time he spoke. He said, the only suggestions that you pay for are the ones that you don't take. And I can understand that statement. Because for about 25 years of coming in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, a lot of people gave me a lot of good suggestions, and I never took any of them. You know, and I'm willing to bet I paid for the majority of them. You know, so I got a sponsor. I started to do things differently. You know, I got active in Alcoholics Anonymous. I chased Alcoholics Anonymous around like I chased my booze and like I chased my other substances. It was probably about 4.5 years clean and sober. I became, what the doctor's opinion talks about, I became restless, irritable, discontented. I was full of fear, and I just did my 4th-day wall. I did a little bit of work, and left out the worst items in stock, like the 5th step talks about, and you know, so I came to my first Big Book Step Study meeting. It was in Bolton. After the meeting, people raised their hands to sponsor people. I actually asked a guy who belongs to the same open speaker meeting that I belong to, so I've known him for years, you know, and I asked him to help me to get through this work, you know. So he read the first 63 pages of Alcoholics Anonymous to me. He pointed stuff out to me, and there's something about when somebody reads this book to you and points stuff out to you, the book starts to come alive to you. No matter how many times I've read this book through and through, whether I was in jail, whether I was in detox, or whether I was on the street, I couldn't comprehend what it was saying until somebody else read it to me and they started to point it out, you know, and I started to write my 4th step. I had over 500 resentments, close to 100 fears, and whatever sex conduct that I had on my list, you know. And I did my 5th step with my sponsor, and after I did my 5th step with my sponsor, he said, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was 5 years sober at that point. And for the first time since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, I felt like I became part of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know? And a few of the reasons why I really came to Big Book Step Study is not because one of the reasons was I was restless, irritable, discontented, I was full of fear, but another reason is I wanted to put myself in a better position to be able to help somebody. You know, because before that I can only tell you to come to this meeting, join this group, and do this, you know. But when I was 4.5 years clean and sober, before I came to Big Book Step Study, I had what page 52 talks about was going on. I know today that I put down the drink, I put down the other substances, but I didn't change any of my behaviors. I was still lying, I was still cheating, and I was still stealing in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I always say this, I have people in Alcoholics Anonymous coming up to me saying, you need to stop doing what you're doing. And my answer to them was, you need to mind your own freaking business. If you got a problem with that, right? We can take it outside and straighten it out. That's exactly what I would say to people. You know, and I didn't understand it until I got here, that I had untreated alcoholism, you know. So step 6 and step 7 is, it's about character defects. And I learned what my character defects are by doing the 4th and 5th step. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, afraid. I didn't understand it then. I understand it today. Even when I did my 5th step, I didn't have that immediate result like most people do. It wasn't until about a couple of days later that I felt that this weight that I had been carrying my whole life was lifted from me. And like everybody who's done this work, after the 5th step, we go home, we spend an hour with God, and we say the 7-step prayer. And even after I did this work, I didn't understand that I had to go back and do step 6 and 7, because even after I did my 5th step, I was still practicing character defects. So I had to go back again and kind of look at them more closely, you know. And what I've come to learn is that self-centered fear is at the core of this disease, and it also activates my character defects. When I get scared, I'm going to get upset. Something's going to act out. I'm going to do something that I don't want to do, or I'm going to say something that I don't want to say, and those defects come out. And I know today that those defects of character are kept in check based on the daily reprieve I get contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual conditions, what I do on a daily basis. And they're not always going to stay down. Sometimes they're going to come up. Step 10 tells me what to do when they do come up. And I wouldn't say that all my character defects have gotten taken away. I would say they've gotten lessened. All right? And the difference today is I'm aware of them compared to before. I mean, if you ask me I heard a guy say once he was a defect looking for a character. I could really understand. I could understand that statement. I really could. And, the difference today is once you're aware of something, it allows you in turn to be able to work on it. And as a result, after I've done this work and I try to practice that type of character defect, I almost get physically sick. It makes me like literally physically sick. I mean, the majority of people I know in here that know me know that I work in a residential treatment facility. So I deal with untreated alcoholism for about 50 hours a week, because that's about what I work. So you can only imagine how important it is for me to try to stay connected to the God of my understanding. And I've had to go back and literally make amends to clients because my character defects come out and I've said something that I didn't want to say. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't spiritually fit at that moment. I know the most times that when I'm not spiritually fit is when I'm tired. When I got so much going on, I'm going a mile a minute, and then all of a sudden Rob's in the collision with the world and everybody in it. And at those moments is when I got to take a step back. You know what I mean? I got to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And so I say the 7-step prayer every morning among the 3rd-step prayer, the 7-step prayer. I ask God to remove my fear on a daily basis. I also say the 11-step prayer, which is on page 99 in the 12 steps and 12 traditions. And when I drive to work in the parking lot, before I go into work, I say the 7-step prayer again, because I really need to be aware of what I'm doing when I go in there, so these character defects don't come up. Step 10 says we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Resentment replaces self-seeking, because in the promises, self-seeking gets removed. And resentment is something we always got to look for, because resentment's the number one offender, destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. When I get mad, I'm going to get upset, and it's underlying fear is what it is. I like to read the book, Drop the Rock. I've read it a few times. I continue to read it. What it does is it gives me more information. And it's a really great book to read after you've done this work, or even during it. It just gives you more information about the weight that's holding us down, And as a result of doing this work, I have clients come up to me sometimes and they say to me, "Doesn't anything bother you?" It's like, you should have seen me about 10 years ago. I probably would have hit you for asking me that question. The difference today is when I'm connected to the God of my understanding, there's not much that's going to bother me. When I'm spiritually fit, it's when I'm not. And the difference today is I'm aware when I am and I'm aware when I'm not. Character defects, they're always going to come up. You know what I mean? It's what I do when they do come up. Do I make the choice to act on that character defect, or do I make the choice to ask God to remove that character defect? More often than not, because I've done this work, I'm asking God to remove that defect. It's usually when I'm in collision and my mind's going 1,000 miles a minute. Tina was just saying that when we walked in here. And I got too much racing in my head and too much going on that my reaction is going to be completely different than what it would be if it wasn't. So I'm not a very long-winded speaker. If there's one thing I could say about character defects is once you learn what they are, you become aware of what they are, which in turn allows you to work on them. They're never going to be removed. They're always going to come up. It's what we do when they do come up. So if you're checking this out, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're writing, keep writing. And I'm grateful to be here and be sober. Thank you.
Thank you.